The Philippines, a scattered archipelago of over 7,000 islands, lay nestled in the heart of Southeast Asia. A vibrant tapestry of diverse cultures and languages, the islands were home to numerous independent communities. These communities thrived on trade, agriculture, and a deep connection to their ancestral lands. Little did they know that their world was about to change forever with the arrival of European powers. Spain, fresh from its conquests in the Americas, set its sights on the Orient. The lure of the Spice Islands, as the Indonesian archipelago was then known, was too tempting to resist. This ambition would lead them to the shores of a distant archipelago, one they would eventually call Las Islas Filipinas. The arrival of the Spanish would usher in an era of profound transformations, forever shaping the destiny of this island nation. In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer in the service of the Spanish crown, landed on the shores of the Philippines. He arrived with a flotilla of 5 ships, weathered from their arduous journey across the vast Pacific. Driven by the ambition to find a westward route to the Spice Islands, Magellan stumbled upon the archipelago. Magellan, with his European sense of superiority, sought to claim the islands for Spain. However, his attempts to impose his will upon others were met with fierce resistance. Lapu-Lapu, a chieftain of Mactan Island, defied Magellan's demands for tribute, leading to a fateful clash. Magellan, underestimating the fighting prowess of the islanders, was slain in the heat of battle. The Spanish, however, were not easily deterred. In 1565, Miguel López de Legazpi, a seasoned conquistador, led a new expedition to the Philippines. Learning from Magellan's mistakes, Legazpi adopted a more pragmatic approach, employing a combination of diplomacy and force to achieve his goals. He forged alliances with some local rulers, exploiting existing rivalries to his advantage. Legazpi recognized the strategic importance of Manila, a bustling trading port located on the shores of a sheltered bay. He captured the city from its Muslim rulers and established it as the capital of the newly proclaimed Spanish colony. Manila, strategically positioned at the crossroads of trade, would become the center of Spanish power in the east. Under Legazpi's leadership, the Spanish established a firm foothold in the Philippines. The Spanish colonization of the Philippines was not just a political and economic endeavor, it was also a religious one. The Catholic Church played a central role in the Spanish colonial project, working hand in hand with the conquistadors to spread the Christian faith. Friars, arriving alongside soldiers, embarked on a mission to convert the native population. They viewed it as their sacred duty to bring Christianity to the perceived heathens of the islands. The friars, often the only Spaniards present in the vast countryside, wielded considerable influence. They learned local languages, established schools and hospitals, and skillfully integrated Christian teachings into existing belief systems. Their efforts resulted in the mass conversion of Filipinos to Catholicism. The widespread adoption of Christianity had a profound and lasting impact on Philippine society. The Spanish colonial administration brought about significant changes to the social and political landscape of the Philippines. They established a centralized form of government, dismantling the existing decentralized system of independent barangays or villages. The islands were organized into provinces, each headed by a Spanish governor, and further subdivided into municipalities, overseen by appointed officials. One of the most significant social changes introduced by the Spanish was the encomienda system. This system, borrowed from their American colonies, granted Spanish conquistadors and officials vast tracts of land along with the labor of the people who lived on it. In practice, the system often led to exploitation and abuse. The encomienda system created a new social hierarchy with the Spanish at the top, followed by a mixed race or mestizo class, and the indigenous Filipinos at the bottom. The Spanish colonization of the Philippines was driven not only by the desire for religious conversion and territorial expansion, but also by economic motives. The islands, strategically located on the trade routes between Asia and the Americas, offered immense economic potential. The Spanish, eager to tap into this lucrative trade network, established a system that would shape the economic landscape of the colony for centuries. The Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, also known as the Galleon de Manila, became the lifeblood of the Spanish colonial economy in the Philippines. For over 2 centuries, massive galleons sailed across the Pacific, connecting Manila to Acapulco in Mexico. These ships, laden with silks, spices, porcelain, and other luxury goods from Asia, made their way across the Pacific, braving storms and pirates. The galleon trade brought immense wealth to the Spanish crown and to the elite in Manila. However, the benefits of this trade were not evenly distributed. The Spanish colonization of the Philippines resulted in a complex interplay of cultures. The arrival of the Spanish brought about a clash of civilizations, a meeting of East and West that left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of the archipelago. While the Spanish sought to impose their own language, religion, and customs, the indigenous Filipinos demonstrated a remarkable resilience, adapting to the new realities while preserving their own traditions. The Spanish language, introduced through the colonial administration and the education system, gradually became the language of government, commerce, and literature. It intermingled with local languages, giving rise to a unique Philippine Spanish and eventually to a hybrid language Tagalog, which would later evolve into the national language Filipino. Despite the dominance of Spanish culture, Filipinos never fully relinquished their own traditions. Traditional music, dance, and storytelling continued to thrive, often serving as subtle forms of resistance against colonial rule. The Spanish colonial regime, despite its initial success in establishing control over the Philippines, was not without its challenges. The Filipinos, though largely pacified through religious conversion and the imposition of Spanish authority, never fully accepted foreign rule. The seeds of discontent sown by economic exploitation, social injustice, and the suppression of native traditions gradually took root, blossoming into a burgeoning sense of national consciousness. Throughout the centuries of Spanish rule, sporadic uprisings erupted across the archipelago. These revolts, often led by local chieftains or religious leaders, were fueled by a variety of grievances, including land disputes, excessive taxation, and forced labor. While these early acts of resistance were largely localized and ultimately crushed by the superior Spanish forces, they reflected a growing spirit of defiance. By the 19th century, a new form of resistance began to emerge, one that transcended localized grievances and articulated a nascent sense of Filipino nationalism. The propaganda movement, while instrumental in raising awareness about the plight of the Filipinos, ultimately failed to achieve its goals of meaningful reform within the Spanish colonial system. The Spanish authorities, threatened by the growing calls for change, responded with increased repression, silencing dissenting voices and persecuting those who dared to challenge their authority. This intransigence only served to radicalize the movement, pushing it towards a more revolutionary path. Among the leading figures of the propaganda movement was José Rizal, a brilliant writer, doctor, and advocate for peaceful reform. His novels, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, exposed the corruption and abuses of the Spanish colonial regime, sparking outrage and igniting the flames of revolution in the hearts of his countrymen. Rizal's writings became a beacon of hope, articulating the aspirations of a people yearning for freedom. However, Rizal's advocacy for peaceful reform proved futile. The execution of José Rizal proved to be a turning point in the Philippine struggle for independence. It ignited a powder keg of resentment that had been building for centuries, sparking the Philippine Revolution of 1896. The Katipunan, a secret revolutionary society founded by Andrés Bonifacio, a charismatic warehouse worker and self-taught intellectual, came out of the shadows, leading the armed struggle against Spanish rule. The cry of Balintawak, a pivotal moment in Philippine history, marked the beginning of the revolution. On August 23, 1896, Bonifacio and his Katipuneros tore their cédulas, or residence certificates, signifying their defiance of Spanish authority, and called for a nationwide uprising against the colonial regime. The cry, a clarion call for freedom, resonated throughout the islands, mobilizing Filipinos from all walks of life to join the struggle for independence. The Philippine Revolution was a testament to the courage, resilience, and determination of the Filipino people. The Philippine Revolution, while initially successful in gaining ground against the Spanish, faced numerous challenges. Internal divisions within the Katipunan, fueled by power struggles and ideological differences, weakened the revolutionary movement. Emilio Aguinaldo, a young and charismatic leader from Cavite, rose to prominence, challenging Bonifacio's leadership. This internal conflict culminated in the Tejeros Convention, which elected Aguinaldo as president of the revolutionary government. Despite these internal divisions, the revolution continued. Aguinaldo, recognizing the need for unity, sought to consolidate his leadership and establish a more organized resistance against the Spanish. He established a new revolutionary government in Biak-na-Bato, Bulacan, and signed a pact with the Spanish authorities, agreeing to a temporary ceasefire in exchange for reforms and financial compensation. However, the truce proved to be short-lived.